Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Emerging Brands Podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Bennett, and each week I sit down with a founder building a cool emerging brand. Jana Goodbaum is here. She is the co founder of Happy Wolf, which is this great line of fridge friendly grab and go bars for kids. And I actually like them too. I think they're delicious. And today, we're going to talk about the brand story and what you're doing differently in the market and your vision, strategy. So, Jana, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. So, cutting right to the chase, I love a good brand story. And when we met prior, you were sharing a little bit about how you've been starting the brand and why you started the brand. And I would love for you to take us behind the scenes of how did Happy Wolf happen?
Sure. So let's go back a few years. I
Okay.
was a busy working mom and I came from the advertising world. I actually came from the world of fast food, if you can believe it. And
Well, that's very full circle.
very full circle. And, I had in many ways my dream job, but I wouldn't feed my own daughter at the time, the food that I was selling as my job. And that started to feel a bit inauthentic and a little bit icky. Um, and even more sort of importantly for me was that I would come home from work. I was working all the time and this, big job, big team, and then I was hand making my daughter's food. Late at night, I was like meal prepping energy balls to send her to daycare at midnight. And I started to wonder, like, I'm already making 3 meals a day. This is hard work. Why can't I go to Whole Foods or go to another, even the healthiest of grocery stores and find prepackaged school safe snacks that I felt good about and that checked my boxes? And when I looked at what was out there, and listen, there's hundreds of kids branded snacks, but all of them at the time had all of these weird ingredients, chemicals, ultra processed ingredients that I didn't use at home. And, listen, you can't be perfect, you can't win them all, but I was kind of like, my kid is 1.5. Like, why do I want to feed them? Why do I want to feed her and her friends and, my friends' kids? Like, why am I giving them these products that I would never, ever use in my own kitchen? And I don't even really know what they are. And that sort of set me off on a journey of looking into the kids' food space. I did a lot of market research at work. So I put on, let's call it my market research hat. And I
Right.
said, if I'm facing this problem, if I can't find a snack bar for my daughter, snack bars are just like the most popular of all the snacks. So started there. If I can't find a bar that I feel good about, I'm sure I'm not alone. And let me sort of test that hypothesis. So I started talking to friends and then I talked to their friends. I would go to my daughter's like like I did like toddler gymnastics at the time, and I was like, I had my husband doing the classes, and I was interviewing parents in the lobby,
So
asking
good.
questions about their kids' snacks. And what I learned was every kid, even the crunchiest mamas who don't want to feed their kids anything ultra processed, like everybody find snacks in the end because you need them. Like we live in it. I live in a big city. Like I'm not a homesteader who can actually hand make everything. Everybody bought snacks and nobody felt great about the snacks that they were feeding their kids. Nobody loved them. There was like a little bit of guilt around them. And certainly nobody had like a love relationship with their kids' snack brand. And I felt like this is a product that you actually buy for a lot of years. And the fact that everybody sort of felt negative around this category was a big moment for me. There's been so much innovation in the baby space, and people have a really
Right.
strong love relationship with so many baby brands. And of course, we have a very, I love some of the brands for me. And I felt like, why isn't anybody creating a brand for kids? Um, that, there was just almost like nothing you could find wrong with it. It was exactly the same as you would make at home if you could, or if you had the time. And that set me down like, let me do this. Let me really look into it. And so I knew I couldn't do it alone. I'm the creative. I come from a marketing background. I had no product innovation, R&D, sourcing, operations. I had none of that. So I knew that I couldn't do it without a co-founder. I convinced my husband's best friend, Derek, who is also a good friend of mine. I convinced him to become my co-founder, and he had a lot of experience in everywhere that I lacked. And we
Incredible.
we went off and we went through 154 recipes together before we landed on our final recipes for our first product, which are fridge fresh bars for kids. So they're basically refrigerated snack bars. And we launched 4 flavors of them in September after about a solid almost 2 years of work.
Incredible. And how did you all go around create finding like this is going to be the recipe? Because something that I love about what you're doing with Happy Wolf is being very transparent also on the journey of building Happy Wolf through your social media. And a post that I came across recently that I thought was just so great on so many different levels, but it was a email thread that you had been sending to a manufacturer, I believe, of all the things that you don't want in your products. So were people excited to take that on or like, "Whoa, I don't know even what to make of this?" Like, could you give us a little bit of
Of
that feedback
course.
because you were doing something relatively new, and I'm sure that list was pretty long of all the things you didn't want and what you did want.
Yes, it was so long. We knew that our sort of reason for existing, our biggest differentiator versus what was already out there was the fact that we would only use ingredients that we would use in our own kitchens with our own kids. So that was our like ultimate test. If an ingredient couldn't be found at your local Whole Foods or like at a health food store, if it's a manufacturing agent or like an ultra processed ingredient that you don't use to cook at home, we were not willing to use it. And the consumer, when we talked to all those parents, like that was such a reason for them to believe it was something everybody got excited about. But finding a manufacturing partner
That
who
also got
could
excited
work
about
with
it.
that was really hard because, you know, the reason manufacturers use all of those, let's call them processing aids, processing agents, emulsifiers, stabilizers, preservatives, is because that is what allows them to make products really efficiently that, they can crank out tens of thousands of bars an hour, that they don't, waste a lot of materials getting stuck to their machines,
Mm,
that they can, last forever, last for years without, a fridge or a freezer. And so telling these manufacturers who, were had to take a chance on us that, oh no, you actually can't do all of the things that you usually do to make a product like this, it really narrowed who would talk to us. Um, we traveled all across North America. We met with many, many co-packers, and we finally found, the perfect one who was willing to do this with us. But what we learned very quickly within those 154 recipes was that if we wanted to do this and make no compromises whatsoever on the ingredients, this had to be a refrigerated product. And that was a huge decision. It was an agonizing decision for us because when you set out to make a bar, you're not thinking about making it refrigerated. The fridge makes it more expensive for us to ship. It's a more competitive space in the grocery store. It's actually a little bit less convenient for the parents who are the end user. And so it was a really big decision whether we sort of give up at that point or do we keep going on a much harder road with a refrigerated product.
And what helped you decide, all right, let's just go for it? It's refrigerated, which in my experience, I've heard lots of different conversations when anything goes into the refrigerator or needs to be in the refrigerator. Like you just said, there's a lot of different parameters, and then thinking about grocery. What helps you say, okay, we're still gonna move forward with it?
Yeah, this was a big decision, and I think a few things. So one, I told you by the end I interviewed almost 700 parents about kids
Wow.
snacks. So it was like a really long journey. I was on maternity leave for part of it, so I had that sort of freedom um, to really do the research that I wanted to research. And what I heard really loud and clear is that the ingredients for this next generation, let's call it, of health conscious parents, like ingredients were king. They came first. You know, I think in the past, maybe consumers looked at the nutritional panel first and they were like, oh, wow, it has all this protein or it has all these added vitamins. And I think for this next consumer who is me and who I'm building for,
Right.
they were primarily concerned with the ingredient panel. And so I knew that if I could give them this ultra clean and simple ingredient panel, they would be willing, or I felt confident to take the risk. Listen, we still haven't proved it. It's really early and signs are really positive so far, but not fully proven. But we were willing to take the risk. We felt confident that parents would jump through those extra hoops of like not leaving it at the bottom of their backpack for 2 months, or
Right.
not storing it in the car, which is something, a lot of parents do. We felt confident that they would go through that extra like inconvenience to have this ingredient deck. And when you think about it, if the alternative is making your own homemade snacks, having a refrigerated item that's good in your fridge for months and good on the go for even, I think ours right now, we write 3 days. And
Right.
it's actually a bit longer, but 3 days is what we rate. Like that's still a huge win to have a product that is just like homemade but lives in your fridge. It's giving them a lot of value. So we took the chance. And so far, we only launched in September, but the parents, the customers who have found us already and who are sort of like our most loyal, most excited about what we're doing, it's always because of the ingredient deck first. And so we're really glad that we didn't compromise and let's say add a preservative or add, a ton of sugar to help keep it stable center store.
Well, I think that also speaks to your due diligence and how thorough you were of having conversations with your ideal target audience to have that data to make an informed decision. We all know that as much as you could research and think about it and your expertise, there's always a chance, right? You always have to, that's like the fun part of business too. Like you really don't know until you do it. But it sounds like you gave yourself the most potential to make an informed decision because you spoke with 700 plus parents who are your target
Yes.
audience to make that informed decision. And that's
Yes.
really
And I think you
interesting.
can drive
Yeah,
yourself crazy. Like
totally.
I never, even after talked to so many parents, I did so much research, like I never felt ready. I still don't feel ready. Um, I think one, that's like why you have a co-founder because they push you um to go when when you might not be ready. I think if I was working alone, I might never have launched this thing because I would never feel like I had all the data I needed. But I think you never would, right? And so I
Absolutely.
think just sort of getting myself into this headspace of like, what's the worst that can happen? As I launch something and it fails, and that's like not that bad. It's really not that bad. And once you get your head around that, what is the worst thing that happens here? Um, I was ready to jump despite, it seems like a lot, but at the time I was like, now I want to do this test and that test and, sensory
Right.
testing with more kids. And we did, listen, we tested it with tons of kids, but again, you could go forever and never feel ready.
I think that's a great point too, and so many founders that I speak to, more so that are my clients, that are in that pre-launch, just beginning moments of launch, going to market. Most of the time, that's the biggest hurdle of just getting over the mental shift of like, oh my gosh, could this happen? Can I really do it? Especially by and large, I work with female founders, and that tends to be a big part of just us doing things maybe we haven't seen before of other people in our family or people in our friend circle. So I'm really glad that you said that because I agree. You could have all the research in the world, but you still have to change your mindset of like, what's the worst that could happen? Let me just put myself out there.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
so I'm glad that you said that because that's a really important piece of this.
I'm sure you find this with your other founders that you both speak to and work with, but putting myself out there was indeed another huge thing that I had to get over, if you will. I think, it's 2024. I don't think we have a choice but to build in public in some way. Not, it's not, I don't have to have a reality show, but I'm like a super private person. I really wasn't active on social personally. Like I was a consumer, but not a creator of any kind. And having I mean, it's confidence, but it's also just like a get over it. Who cares? Who
Right.
cares what people think of me? That was so, so hard. And I think that's so hard for so many women that I've talked to as well. Um, because
How
that
did
it's
you
not
get
just,
over that? Or
yeah.
find your niche in that because I agree, so many people that I work with, that's probably one of the biggest hurdles is just getting out of your own way and putting yourself out there and people who aren't necessarily sharing all the time on social media. And I'll be honest, even myself, if I didn't have a reason to be posting on social media for business, it's not something that I would be probably doing, but
Mm-hmm.
the year is 2024. We
We don't
need
have
this
a choice. Yeah, we
presence.
don't have a choice. And
No,
that
if you
was that
if
was
you
what it
wanna
was. It
build a
was like,
brand, a consumer
yes.
brand,
It was like, do I want
part of
this
it.
badly enough? And do I believe in this idea enough to put myself out there? And I think it went back to that fear of failure, of that fear of like, what's the worst that can happen? It's like, what's the worst that can happen? Is like people talk behind my back about me posting about healthy kids food all the time on social. Okay, I can handle that. That's it. And so, it took a bit of therapy and some affirmations, but once I got through it and once you start, as you know, it's never as bad as you think it will be.
Yes, absolutely. And I've been creating content for 15 years now. I was a blogger back in the day. I was part of the wave of getting brands on social media and like those very early conversations. And I too still get sometimes in my own way with creating content. I've spoken to many people who are professional content creators who feel that way too. If they didn't create content in a week, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot everything. I need to go back to the drawing board." So I think it's just something that is a practice and that
Mhm.
everyone kind of hits a wall or gets burnt out or feels self-conscious about something. And I think it's more now I'm really happy that social has shifted to the point where it's that transparency and that I'm doing it scared and this is what I'm kind of anxious about. That type of content is now what people are really resonating with. I think the veil was really lifted in 2020 and that we can have these perfectly curated lives, which is great and real.
Agreed.
Um,
Agreed.
and so I think it's definitely shifted and changed, and I think, people just wanna see real humans and connect with real humans and have real conversations and nuance and realize that other people are human also, right? And they'll have
Totally.
that connection. And speaking of social, one of the pieces of content that you shared that I thought was so good about you going to a trade show and people asking you questions about, like, oh, is your husband babysitting? And, oh, where are your kids while you're here? I was like, this is really great content overall, storytelling you as a founder. But I'm sure lots of moms who are busy and working, right? Because you're speaking to, by and large, parents who are working
Mhm.
who could also resonate with that. And it
Mhm.
just creates another talking point of you building this brand of what you are facing as a founder. So I thought all of that was just so perfect and great.
Thank
And
you.
it seemed like a lot of people engaged on that post too.
Yeah, and you know what? That was like an example of like we were just about to post, your classic recap, like, oh, here's pictures of me at this trade show. And it didn't feel, you know this, you've been creating content for much longer than me, but I was like, who cares? Like, who cares that I went to this trade show? Like, what happened to me at this trade show? And the truth is, like, I didn't close a whole lot of deals and I didn't, it was great. It was good exposure with all the things, but it wasn't this like huge highlight celebration. It was like what happened was I left my two toddlers for like 48 hours. I barely slept. I was exhausted. And then like the second I went into my story to the many, many hundreds of people that I talked to, was like the most common question was not about my product, but about like who has my kids and who's watching them and how can I be here if I have two little kids. And for me, that was like it's like this is something that I would care about if I was following. And this is what I want to come home and talk about with my friends and with my husband. And so let me share that with my followers.
Which is also wild in the year of
Yeah.
2024. When I saw that, it even was striking to me. I'm like, who would even think to ask
But
this?
it's
But
so funny because I feel like maybe I could have asked that in a different time. It was always coming from like nobody's like, you know, nobody's saying it in like it's always well-meaning. I think
yeah.
people are genuinely curious because I always start my little elevator pitch with like, oh, I have two kids under 4, and I was a busy mom. And then they're like, well, where are these kids of yours? But I just think it's something that unconsciously or subconsciously we would just never ask to a male
No.
founder who had the same age kids. And so, yeah, it really stuck out.
That is a really interesting piece of the story, and I think something for your own brand as you are sharing more of your own story of being a founder and your own journey, you being able to speak on that and how you navigated those conversations, because I'm sure there's a lot of parent founders, mom founders, female founders who may have a lot of anxiety around getting those types of questions. And again, it's just another
Hmm.
touch point of you and who you are and the human relationships you're building and the authentic storytelling. So I love that you're doing that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What has been a strategy? Because you said that you did lots of um, conversations, 700 plus parent
Hmm.
interviews, which is incredible. You have a background in marketing and advertising. What was that approach to actually go to market? You found the recipe, you're finding your groove, you're finding that confidence, you have the co-founder, you're like, "Hell yeah, we're going to go
Yes.
all for it." What did those early like September even to now? I mean, September was
Yeah,
not
oh,
that
we're
long
still
ago,
we're a newborn brand here. Like we are
which is
we are truly a
incredible,
baby.
which is
Thank you.
incredible. What was that strategy like going to market?
So we started with just sending our product to like regular moms, like not influencers. We literally said, we started posting on social about what we're doing and who we are. And we said, like, who wants to try this thing? Like, we'd love to have tasters. And that was really cool because we were just mailing like unbranded, like they weren't even in packaging yet. We were mailing silver foil wrapped test product to regular moms, but like obviously if they found us at the beginning, they were generally excited and interested in what we were building and really looking for better snacks for their kids. And we started with them and getting their feedback, and they were starting to post about us, and it was starting to just like pick up momentum before we even launched, which was really exciting. A little bit scary,
Right.
again, putting ourselves out there like when things weren't perfect yet. There's a really big perfectionist part of me that felt like, how can I be mailing people product that's, not branded yet? Then they're going to be posting pictures of our product in silver foil. What is, this isn't perfect. This isn't how
Right.
I envisioned it. But I sort of realized like if I just got started once everything was perfect, first of all, it will never be perfect, but also then, we don't have that momentum to go off of. So we did that. Then we started, we turned on pre-orders, which was really huge. We got like even remember it's hundreds of pre-orders, which was really cool. And it
Amazing.
really started to give us that confidence of like, okay, let's do this. People are excited. People want this. And then we started sending once it was in wrapper, but still hadn't launched, still not available for sale. We started sending it to influencers. And then we turned on and we started selling. And it's all really been organic since we started. We haven't done a lot. We haven't done any almost no paid. We've tried a few things and I don't
Right.
think we're really for me, we're not at the stage of our business yet where paid makes sense. It's been really wonderfully organic and word of mouth from one, parent to the other. Um, and the influencers are genuinely like, one day we want to be large enough where we can afford to pay them for campaigns and for amazing customized messages. But right now it's like, let's send to influencers who we think genuinely care about this, who
Right.
are looking for this type of product for their kids. And we're not going to ask anything of them, but a lot of them have posted about it just through their own excitement. And like, again, there really was a gap in the market we felt for what we're doing. And so that's helped and has helped us get the attention of retail buyers. So I think if we were a shelf stable product, I would not be in retail yet. I would have stuck to this sort of organic D2C for a while. But because a refrigerated product is so expensive to ship, we have to ship with ice packs. We're
Right.
sort of asking people to buy, 4 boxes at a time so that it makes sense for us to send a D2C shipment.
Right.
It actually makes it a product that is more retail friendly so that somebody can just find one box on their weekly shopping trip, throw it in. It's not a huge risk for them to just try it. And so we felt like when we started having those initial conversations with retailers, like, let's do this before we're ready. Let's just try. And so far, so good.
Well, the retailer where I found you first is Pop Up Grocer, one of my favorite
Yes. Oh my goodness.
stores in New York City. And Emily was on the podcast too. And I'm just a huge fan of Pop Up Grocer. And you have a great spot there in the fridge
It's
section. It looks beautiful. Your branding is fantastic. I didn't realize you had a background in marketing and advertising, but it totally tracks because your
Thank you.
messaging, the packaging, the branding, everything just looks so good and spot on. So it sounds like you then reached out to the specialty groceries. What about more conventional groceries? Have you
Yeah, so
been there too?
we're in select Wegmans right now,
Oh,
which is like
incredible.
pretty conventional. And
That's a good
we're
mix of
actually
both Wegmans.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think we're not going into like full conventional anytime, not tomorrow. We I think the people who are so excited about us, the ones who are going to be doing that like organic sharing, you know, not to stereotype, but we are finding that they're in the natural stores more because they're just so ingredient obsessed, right? They're so excited about our
It's a
mission and what we're doing.
passion.
And so for us to get those early adopters who are really going to be our champions, I think they're in the natural set right now.
I think that's spot on, and also people who it's genuinely their lifestyle, and you're fitting, or filling a need, I should say, that has been a pain point. They're going to want to tell their friends and family and other people in their community. So I think that totally makes sense. And I'm all about building authentic community around a brand, and that sounds exactly what you're doing. And I just admire how you're building it and being a mom and being,
Thank
a
you.
wife and all those things and how you're managing all of it while growing a baby company that has
Thank you.
such
You know,
cool
it's so
potential.
funny. That's something that I like. I find I'm somehow entering into conversations now with other moms who maybe want to start a brand and are like, but I don't feel like I can do it. I don't feel like the time is right in my life. This is such a busy time baseline. How can I just like bring this chaos of starting something? And you know, I just feel like you're not gonna have it together no matter what you're doing. As we all know, like it's never gonna feel like the right time to start a business, whether or not you have kids. I don't think one founder that you work with ever was just like woke up and was like, this is the perfect moment in my life to start a business.
Literally no one. I've
Nobody.
I've interviewed and worked with thousands of founders at this point. Literally, I've not met one person that was like, "This is the
This
perfect
is it.
time."
This is it. Right. So I keep telling people, I'm like, don't wait for that moment to feel right. It's never going to feel right. Your life is always going to feel chaotic. Even when your kids are grown, it's not like, it's not like you're going to wake up and be like, now this is the day. So like if you have this idea and you do the work and you feel, that nobody could do it better than you, or that, you just want to take that shot. Like, I mean, know that it's going to be a hot mess, but it would be a hot mess anyway.
I love it. I love it. What is the vision for Happy Wolf?
I think it's funny to talk about the vision, like, because we're so new, but we really do. We started with bars because I interviewed so many parents and everybody everybody's kids consume bars. It was just sort of where I felt like we could have the biggest opportunity the fastest. But, like I said, there's been so little innovation in the kids' food space, the kids' snack space. Um, and so I feel like there's endless categories that can be like given a makeover and stripped down to their simplest forms. And I think, right now we're sort of looking at like, well, what do you buy that is not the same as what you would make at home if you were doing it yourself? And where can we have a really big impact for parents who are looking for better?
I love it. I also had my girlfriend's kids, who are 8 and 11, do a taste test, and the cinnamon flavor was the number
Oh,
1.
good. Very
That was their
good.
favorite. They were so cute, and they were loving them, and the cinnamon, they wanted me to tell you, was their favorite.
Okay, good. Yes,
Yes,
that's the apple cinnamon is my favorite too.
apple
The
cinnamon, yes.
chocolate chip is the crowd favorite though.
That was my favorite.
Mm-hmm. It's we worked really hard. I'll brag about my chocolate chip babies for a minute because
Yes,
I really wanted to do a chocolate chip flavor, but I really didn't want to use refined sugar. And it's really hard to find a refined sugar-free chocolate chip that doesn't use like weird sugar alcohols or artificial or natural sweeteners. I
right.
wanted to do it with dates. I knew it was possible. We've seen it done, but we also are allergen free. So it was very specific requirements. We're organic, we're heavy metal tested. We have so many requirements. And, you know, bless him, but my business partner kept telling me like, give up on these chocolate chips, Jana. Like, give it up, move on, a different flavor. give it up. And I wouldn't give it up because I knew that this is what I wanted. I knew that I could make it happen. I was emailing like chocolate manufacturers using Google Translate, like in Italian. I was like writing these like Swiss and Italian manufacturers every day, over and hundreds of emails like, can you do this for us? Can you make us a chocolate chip that is only sweetened with dates, that is also, checking all these requirements that we had? And finally, like he gave me, it was like I said, we never were gonna feel ready. He gave me like 10 more days. He's like, if you don't find chocolate chips in 10 days, like we're moving on to production. We're moving on to production without this flavor. I was like, I'm gonna do it. I stayed up overnight. I emailed hundreds and hundreds of chocolate manufacturers, and I found one in South America, like across the world, who would take a chance on us and would do it. And we spent so much money buying these chocolate chips before we even tasted them to have them try this run for us. And thank God they taste amazing. And we're so
Wow.
excited. It's like, but that was like almost another product, on its own that we had to bring to market in order to make this date sweetened chocolate chip bar. We're probably not doing a good enough
Incredible.
job telling that story, to your point.
No, absolutely. I now even appreciate them even more because I found them really delicious, but now I appreciate it even more knowing the trouble that you went through and the research and again, those are the things that I think differentiate you in the market of how due diligent you are with your sourcing of ingredients to really have people trust in what you are bringing to the shelf or the
The
refrigerator, right?
fridge, yes.
Um, I think that's incredible, and again, I just admire how you're building the brand, what you stand for. It's delicious, it's clever, and, I'm just really thrilled to see what you do with Happy Wolf.
Thank you. I
You're
appreciate that.
welcome. And most important question, where can people shop Happy Wolf?
Okay, so we are available at happywolf.com primarily, and then you can start to find we are rolling into grocery stores. So we're in select Wegmans, we are in Gelson's and Erewhon, and Jimbo's in Southern California. We're in, a bunch of amazing small independent retailers that you can find on our store locator. And you can follow along on our journey as we attempt to build in public at Happy Wolf Snacks on Instagram.
Incredible. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast. This was a great conversation. I appreciate you. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Go support Happy Wolf, and I'll see everyone on the next episode. Bye.
Thank you. Take care.